Good morning, everybody. Troy from the Do-It-Yourself World and the Off-Grid Project. Let's talk about weather one more time. I keep trying. I don't know, I guess people are confused. Lewiston, although it's 5 to 7 miles away, has a large lake. Lakes affect the weather. The weather apps, I have 2 weather apps on my phone, which show the weather for Lewiston, which is the nearest weather station for my area. There's nothing else closer. That's the nearest one. That's the main town nearby, which is relatively close. Therefore, there's not another weather station for my home, and therefore the weather, when they said it was going to be 42 degrees at night in Lewiston the first night, I thought, oh, 42 is cold, but not dangerous to my garden. Therefore, I went to sleep happily and peacefully, not fearing a freeze. I got up in the morning to damaged and destroyed garden crops, and then I saw that it did freeze, although Lewiston did not freeze. I went to town and I talked to people that day. They said it did not freeze in town. I came home and talked to my neighbors, and they said yes, it did freeze in their garden here in this area, away from the lake which neutralizes and smooths out the temperature fluctuations, makes it less drastic temperature swings. So the next night I checked my weather app for that night, and it says it was going to be 42 degrees in Lewiston again. Therefore, I said, here it's probably going to be 32 degrees again, and therefore I covered my plants. No lies there. I was not caught up in any lies. I was not caught up in any mistakes. I stated 2 separate temperatures because we're talking about 2 separate, distinct areas, and I guessed that it would be 32 degrees that night because it was 32 degrees the previous night. Although, just to clear up another possible confusion where people might try to trip me up and catch me in the lies, in quotes, I showed it was 36 or 38 on the weather station the next morning, but that's because as soon as the sun rises, the temperature changes drastically, rapidly. So by the time I got to the weather station, it had already come above freezing, but you can see that the plants had been destroyed. So I don't know why. I don't know how to say this clear enough, people. Let's take a comparison. If you're ever driving down the road and you see a rainstorm, and you're driving in a wet rainstorm area, and all of a sudden you cross, it's like a dry line, like a clear line, a divider, and suddenly you drive on a dry pavement. Storms do that. And even a lake, there's two major lakes in Lewiston, and even a lake of that size can influence the weather patterns. So often the temperature there is different from the temperature here by quite a few degrees. Very often I've driven from here, checking the temperature, gone to town, and found a milder temperature by 5 to 10 degrees in the daytime. We have extremes here, I think, because the sandy soil does not absorb the heat of the sun as well, and then it doesn't retain it as well. You can compare it to the desert. I was in the desert in California, National Training Center, in the military, and during the day it was scorching hot, and at night it froze, which is mind-blowing because you would think the desert is always hot. But because the sand doesn't retain the sun's warmth, therefore when the sun goes down, the temperature goes away drastically. So we have bigger temperature swings here than in Lewiston because of their lake. Now we went up north, an hour and a half further north, where you would expect an even colder weather temperature pattern, colder extremes, but they had milder. Although they have sandy soil, they have the Great Lakes, and there they have less temperature swings. Here we had 90, 95 to 100 degrees by day and 50 at night, and there they had 70 in the day, 65 at night because of the lake. So I cannot explain this anymore, and from now on, if you try to catch me in a lie about my temperature, I'm just gonna delete it. I cannot explain it any better, and honestly, it's exhausting. I have no reason to lie, guys. I'm making a video on my daily life. I have nothing to hide here. I've got nothing to lie about. Why would I want to tell you it froze in the night and show plants dead if it didn't? I was happy showing the beautiful huge tomatoes, and I would prefer to have that, actually. If I could take that back, I would very much love to do so. But the brown and dead vegetation does not lie. You can call me a liar, but that, you cannot fake that. It's all dead. Everything is dead. Only the weeds lived, sadly. Only the weeds lived. All the brown and death in the garden shows you that although it was 42 degrees in Lewiston, it did freeze here, just 5 to 7 miles away. So, I don't know. I can't explain it any better than that. Birds. My chickens are not suffering. They're not crowded. Everybody's saying they're suffering and they're miserable and they're dying because of the crowded conditions. They get fresh greens and a fresh area to walk in every second day. Every 2 days they get fresh browsing range. Their cage is small, yes, but meat birds don't have any feathers. And the meat birds bunch up together at night. I could give them a house the size of my garden, and they'll still bunch up at night in a tiny little corner. I know this because I've had them all year now, and every single night they bunch up and huddle together in a corner. Therefore, it doesn't matter how big or small the cage is. They're not overcrowded at night because they're only in the cage at night. At night. Only at night. So they need the smaller area, and I close off the sides at night. Otherwise, they will die from exposure. You have to realize meat birds are not your normal barnyard flock. They don't have feathers. They're not filled out. And they will die if you give them too large a place to live. They don't have the body heat and the temperature regulation of a normal chicken. They must be kept warm. They must have a small place that they can heat up with their bodies quicker, or they will die. Now, that's only at night. I put them in at night, right before dark, and I let them out in the morning first thing, every single day. So they're free to range and run and roam. You can see they're not crowded, they're not having any troubles, and they have fresh stuff to scratch and pick and eat every day. Again, I think people are confused because they're thinking normal barnyard chickens. And yes, a barnyard chicken has to have its space at night. They'll roost up in the rafters or in the posts and everything, and they do not huddle together. The meat birds huddle together at night for warmth. They will bunch right up in a little pile. Doesn't matter how big or small your house is, they will still bunch up together for warmth at night, every single night. Again, I cover it at night. They have space, and the day we open it for fresh air. So they're not crowded and they're not suffering. Meat birds grow too fast for their organs to keep up. You're going to have death. It was an adult meat bird that died and not a baby. I know that Mother Many Horses commented that maybe it was, maybe you shouldn't mix your sizes together. But I haven't ever had problems with that. The little ones have, in my experience so far, the little ones have benefited from snuggling in under the bigger ones. Now, granted, there can be hazard of being squished, but I haven't lost any to that yet. Not saying that danger isn't there, just that I haven't had it happen. It was a large, full-grown adult that was ready for slaughter that we were going to slaughter yesterday. That actually died in the night on its own. But this is just because these birds are from egg to table in 8 weeks. Actually, I've just watched a documentary video on meat birds on YouTube, and those birds actually are crowded neck to neck, shoulder to shoulder for their whole lives. Their bedding is never changed. They never see the outdoors. They never have fresh air from outside, and they just don't have any space to move at all. And those birds are harvested in 28 days, I heard. I thought I misunderstood, but it said 28 days they harvest those birds. 1 month. But the difference with those is they're given access to food 24/7. I don't give my birds food at night. It gives them some more time to grow, and they're healthier, and I have less loss. I think that's a huge, huge benefit with growing these birds. They're very much healthier. They're strong. They're walking. They're flapping their wings. They're healthy, happy. The commercial birds are really, really bad. Don't take my word for it. Go look up some of the documentaries on the commercial birds. Now, I'm not knocking all the commercial farms. I'm talking about the big ones, the crowded ones. There's a lot of farms that have very humane and good chicken conditions for raising chickens, but I do believe that the way we raise them is much better because of the results we've had. So, hope that clears that up too. I don't know why I keep getting criticized for the small sleeping area, but these are not your barnyard chickens. My barnyard chickens have an 8x8 area with 3 dimensions, and they spread out and have a lot of space for 12 birds. Not a problem there at all. But these birds, they need the warmth at night. They have to huddle together. If I gave them too big a cage, they'll die from exposure. So, I'm going to get this video up to you there real quick. Just trying to explain things as I say it in the comments, because although it seems like I say something in a video, it seems like often I'm asked the same thing in the same video I just said it. So I try to explain it. Hope there's no hard feelings, nobody mad, except for the ones that are trying to call me a liar about the weather and trying to catch me in my lies and my mistakes. By the way, I delete most of the bad stuff. I see somebody asking me, well, show me the comments you're talking about. Well, I can't. If it's obnoxious and evil and filthy and rude, I'm going to delete it. So I can't show you those comments. I don't want you to see those comments. They don't deserve to be up there. Anyway, happy birds. Happy, healthy birds. I felt bad about harvesting those others because they were so healthy. Amazing. Melanie, when she had them opened up, she talked about how healthy they were. Really, really good, healthy birds. Actually, the roosters were doing rooster things to the hens. So, it was interesting.